Guys, welcome back to Josh No Code, and in today's tutorial, we're going to be showing you how to send data from Zapier to bubble.io. In our previous video, we showed you how to integrate Bubble with Zapier and how to send data from Bubble to Zapier. But before we could jump into it, make sure you're subscribed to my channel to follow more of my content. So we're going to be showing you guys 4 essential Bubble actions in Zapier. First, we're going to create an action to create a thing in Bubble. Then we're going to show you guys how to find a thing in Bubble, how to modify that thing, and finally to trigger an API workflow in Bubble. So what we're going to cover specifically, we're going to create a data type and set up a page that displays our data in real time whenever we trigger this zap. We're going to go over the trigger setup. For this simple example, we're just going to set up a simple Google form to submit the data. Then we're going to go through the actions, how to create the thing in Bubble from Zapier, how to find a new thing, how to modify a thing, and how to trigger the API workflow in Bubble from Zapier. And then finally, we're going to do some end-to-end testing. So that's the agenda for today's tutorial, and we will see you in Bubble. So here we are in our Bubble editor, and before we can get started, we need to make sure that we have the Zapier plugin installed. We have it installed, but if you don't, I created a video where I show you how to set up the Zapier plugin step by step. And so make sure to watch that if you don't know how to do it and get the integration set up. Assuming that you have it set up, let's just jump into it. So the first thing that we're going to do here, which I already did, is create a new type to store customer information. So I created a type called customer where I'm storing the email address, the name, and the phone number of the customer. I set all of those fields to text, and that's basically it for the type. And the idea behind it is we're going to be creating data from the Google form. So we want to store the customer data in this type. And when you've done that, let's just jump over to create a new page. So we're going to go ahead and let's add a new page here. We're going to call this page customer list. We're not going to clone it from anything. And the idea behind this page is that we're going to be displaying the data that we send from Zapier in a repeating group in real time. This way we could see whenever we make a submission, it just populates right into the repeating group. So let's go ahead and we're going to set this page content to customer. Then we're going to add a repeating group here, and we are going to set the type of content to customer. Let's just make it a little bit bigger here. And we are just going to add some titles. We're just going to add name, format it a little bit. Great. Then we're just going to add the phone number. And we are going to add the email address. Great. So that is good for now. We could always make it a little bit prettier later. But let's go ahead and let's just add some fields here. So the first field we're going to add here is just the name field. You just add a text box, and we're going to insert some dynamic data. So we'll go to current sales customer's name. We will just remove this style, make it black. And then the next thing, let's add the phone number. So we can just copy paste this, but just change the current sales customer name to current sales customer's phone number. And then we will do the same thing for the email address. Great. So let's just change this to current sales customer email. Great. So that's all we need, and just some other things to be considerate of here. Fixed number of rows, we're just going to uncheck that, and then we are going to show all items immediately. Want to have that selected as well. Let's just increase the height of this page, make it 4,000, and then we are just going to drag this repeating group down, and that should be fine. And then let's see here for the repeating group, the data source, we are going to do a search for the current pages. Let's see, do a search for type customer. We're not going to add any constraints, but we're just going to sort by the create date. And for descending, we are going to select yes. This way, all our information descends from the create date, and we can just see it in order. Okay, so that's what you need to do in Bubble. Let's go ahead and let's go into Zapier. Okay, so here we are in Zapier. We're going to go ahead and set up our trigger. So let's just search for Google Form, which will be our trigger for this Zap. So the event I'm going to select is new form response. It's going to trigger when a new form response is received, and this is an instant trigger. Next, select your account, and then select your form. So we already created a form here called customer form, and it has all the same fields as our data type. Let's go ahead and test our trigger. And a form submission successfully was received. Next, we're going to go and set up our actions, so search for Bubble. And the event that we want is create thing. And this is going to create a new thing in our data type. Select your account, and then you're going to want to configure your application. So for app ID, so you'll see your app ID show here. We're going to select ours, and next the app version, select development environment, and for data type, select customer. This was the data type that we previously created in Bubble. So the next thing we want to do is we want to map the fields from Google Forms to Bubble. So for the email field, let's go ahead and let's map the email. Then we're going to map the name. And then we are going to map the phone number. We're going to test the action. And now a thing was successfully created in Bubble. So let's go ahead and let's publish this Zap. And I'm going to show you what happens when we make a form submission on our Google form. Okay, so here we have our customer form on the right side, and on the left side here we have our Bubble application. We could see the table that we created. This is the repeating group, and we have our fields name, phone number, and email above the table. So let's go ahead and make a few submissions. We're going to make another submission, name 2, phone 2, and email 2. And let's make a third submission. Great. Okay. So what should happen in just a moment, we should see our data start to come in. So these are from the Google Form submission. We see they're populating here. We have the first submission here, name 1, phone 1, email 1. name 2, phone 2, email 2, and then finally the third submission. So this is just to show you that we can easily create data in our data type from Zapier using the Google form submission trigger, and we could do this with any other application that we want as the original data source. Okay, so here we are back in Zapier, and the next thing I'm going to show you guys how to do is a bit fun. So if we want to modify an existing thing in Bubble, how can we do that? Well, I'm going to show you how to do that right now. I deleted the original action step that we had set up to create a new thing in Bubble, so I deleted that, and we're going to add a new step, new action step, and the event that we want is modify thing, and this is going to modify a thing by ID. So we select that, and we want to configure our app just like we did last time. Let's wait for Zapier to load and go ahead, and now we select our application, app ID, select app version, we select the development environment, and for data type, we're going to select customer. So thing ID, this is the ID of the Bubble thing to modify. Where are we going to get that from? So what we want to do is we want to add a search step to find the existing thing in Bubble. So we configure our application like we did in the last step. And for data type, we select customer. And for search field, what we want to do is we want to search by email. So the system is going to search Bubble, basically the data type customer, the email column, to try to find a matching email from Google form. And for the search constraint, we want equals. So search term, this is the value that it's going to search against. We want to find the email here and go ahead and select it. And should this step be considered a success when nothing is found? Let's just leave that as no. So now we are going to search for this record. This was actually a new record that I created, test@test.com email address. So let's go ahead and test it, see if Bubble can find this record. So we could see that Bubble found the thing, and we have all the details about our thing here, which is great. And let's go ahead and click on continue. And now for the modify thing in Bubble step, what we want to do, well, we can't do anything now until this loads up. Let's refresh our screen. Okay, so for the modify step, now the thing ID, you're going to want to go to custom, scroll down, go to number 2, find a Bubble thing in Bubble, which is our last step, and now select the unique ID. So this is the ID of the thing that we are modifying. And now we are going to just map the fields again from the Google form. So let's map email. Let's map the name. And finally, map phone number. We're going to test it. And we successfully modified an existing thing in Bubble. So now let's see how this looks from the Google form. Okay, so here we are back at the Google form and our Bubble application, and we are going to target modifying this record right here. Name test, test phone, test@test.com. And remember, the search constraint is going to be the email address, so we are going to target this email. We're going to type that in right into this email field right here, and we're going to change the values for the name and the phone number. And when we submit it, what's going to happen is basically Bubble's going to find this record based off of the email address, and then it's going to modify the name and the phone number, and it's also going to modify the email address, but we're going to keep that the same, obviously, in order to search for the record. and we should just see the name and the phone number change. So without further ado, let's go ahead and do that. So for name, I'm going to say Apple. For phone, I am just going to put a bunch of numbers. Let's put 888-888-8888. And for email address, let's just do the email address right here, test@test.com. And let's see what happens. Now we just have to patiently wait. Okay, so we just saw right before our eyes, the record just changed from the form submission. Name was changed to Apple. The phone number, we have this long 888 number, and now we have the email address, which actually stays the same. So that's how we can modify an existing thing in Bubble from Zapier. And so the last thing I'm going to show you guys in this video how to do is how to trigger an API workflow in Bubble from Zapier. So let's head on over to Bubble to set up the API workflow. Here we are in Bubble again. We're going to create that backend workflow. So make sure to head over to backend workflows in your editor and click here to add a new workflow. We're going to add a new API workflow. We're going to name this workflow customer email. And you want to have expose as public API workflow selected. Make sure this is triggered workflow with post, a post request, and parameter definition, manual definition is fine. So this is good. I believe these are just default settings, and you're going to want to add a new parameter. So we're just going to add the key customer, whatever we want to name it. And for type, we are going to select customer. So this is obviously the data that we want to send in this API workflow. So this all looks good right here. And now we are going to add a new action. So let's go ahead and send an email. And 2, we are going to insert some dynamic data. We're going to insert customer's email. So we're going to send it to the customer's email. We are going to now have to add a subject. So I'm just going to say something like maybe new customer. Actually, how about like thank you for signing up? And then for body, we'll just say customer's name. Thank you for signing up. Here is the information you submitted to us. And then we'll just add phone number, customer's phone, and we will add email, something like that, just to show you that all the customer's information is going to be sent in this email. So this is going to be our API workflow right here. This is what we are going to be sending. So this is all the information. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's test, well, not test this out. Let's actually set this up in Zapier. So finally, I'm going to show you guys how to trigger an API workflow in Bubble from Zapier. So as you can see here, I added back the create thing in Bubble step because I just created a new thing. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add the step that's going to trigger the API workflow. So let's add another Bubble step here. And let's go ahead and select our event. We're going to trigger an API workflow. This is going to kick off an API workflow in Bubble. For app ID, let's select our app ID like we did before. And let's select for API workflow. We'll see our API workflow populate here, customer underscore email. Let's go ahead and select that one. And for the customer field, what we're going to want to do is we're going to populate the unique ID, which is available in step 2. This is from the create thing in Bubble step that I created. And let's go ahead and let's see if this works. So a workflow was sent to Bubble. So this successfully ran. So let's go ahead and let's publish this. And now I'm going to show you guys what this looks like, all from the form. Okay, so here we are looking at our Google form again, and we're going to make a submission. And when we make a submission, this should trigger the API workflow in Bubble, and we should receive an email. So let's go ahead, let's make a test submission here. So test just first name, we'll do a random phone number. And for email address, I'm just going to use my own email address, hello@joshnocode.com. Let's go ahead and submit that, and let's see if we receive an email from Bubble. Okay, we just received an email from our Bubble application. Thank you for signing up. Let's go ahead and click that, and we can see the information that we entered in from the form. So test first name, thank you for signing up. Here's the information you submitted to us. Here's the phone number. Here is the email address, the test values, and that basically wraps up how we could trigger an API workflow from Zapier. And yeah, in this video we covered some really great things. You know, how we can create a new thing in Bubble, how we can modify a thing, how we can find a thing, and finally how to trigger this API workflow. So you could do some pretty amazing stuff with this integration, and it'll support all your needs from, you know, if you need to create or whatever you need to do in Bubble, you could do it now from Zapier. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to give it a like, give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel or not subscribed already, make sure to subscribe to follow more of my content. I'm always down for new ideas and suggestions. Thank you for supporting this channel here. I really look forward to creating more videos for you guys. And let's see what comes next. I'm really excited to keep this going. Alrighty, see you all soon.